Welcome back, everyone. A quick update, there's a leaderboard feature on this platform. The leaderboard is where you will find your points earned. You can earn them by inviting your friends to the virtual summit, sharing the summit content, and rating the session, visiting our partners' booth, downloading useful content, watching informative videos, and taking part in surveys or chatting with the experts. At the end of the summit, you'll get attractive gifts based on the points earned, so keep engaging and keep winning. And as we move forward, I'm elated to announce the next session, a fireside chat on the business impetus to adapt metaverse and other cutting edge technologies. I know this sounds really intriguing, so please join me in welcoming the speakers. Vinod Bhat, CIO, Vistara-Tata SIA Airlines, Amol Pitale, CIO Crompton Greaves Consumer Electricals, and Shipra Malhotra, Executive Editor, Special Initiatives, ETCIO and ETCIO SO as the session moderator.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this interesting fireside chat on the topic, the business impetus to adapt metaverse and other cutting edge technologies. Now, as technology continues to evolve, so will the industries that utilize it. With software development at the heart of the latest advances, we look at emerging technologies including metaverse, blockchain, data analytics, and AI as razor-sharp tools to disrupt operational models, processes, supply chains, and market penetration. Now, the question is, how do leaders ensure nimbleness amid teams to abandon the existing system and adapt new technologies without compromising the workflow? So to discuss on that, I have with me two prominent technology leaders. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Vinod Bhat, Chief Information Officer, Vistara Airlines, and Mr. Amol Pitale, CIO, Crompton Greaves Consumer Electricals. Welcome, gentlemen. So Vinod, I would like to ask you the first question. What is your future roadmap with respect to leveraging new technologies like AI, ML, blockchain, and more futuristic ones like metaverse going forward?
First of all, Shipra, thank you for having me again, and good morning. So I think before I get into the metaverse and the other new age technologies, I want to really set the context. See what we are talking about. See, we're talking about, say, Industry 4.0 technologies here, and which is you talk of cloud, you talk of analytics, you talk about automation and other areas. But I would probably go back to the fundamental point, which is very relevant for these technologies, is data. So a lot of companies are actually in that whole transformation journey, which includes breaking the data silos, which includes the integration, which include the single view of the product, single view of the customer, single view of the consumer, from the marketing side, sales side. So the journey is going on, I think, across. So I would say before we jump into AI/ML, I think the data is very important. So the data strategy will continue, and it is evolving. More importantly, in the COVID times also, because a lot of these offline channels have gone to online channels. So a lot of data is, more and more data is getting generated, and you need a lot more sanctity of the data, referential integrity of the data, the correctness of the data, deduplication of the data. And on top of it, you can run the algorithms. Once you have got a right set of data, then you can, when you say algorithm, it's more about from the business strategy point of view. So this will go on. While the new technologies which are emerging, whether it is AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, or even metaverse. So these will take a little bit of time to evolve. But as technology leaders, I think all of us know that we have our center of excellences, we have our domain groups which keep track of these technologies, and more importantly, we identify those use cases which will be piloted for against these technologies and show to the business leaders that what does it mean, because you can't be caught off guarded while the whole world is getting transformed and you are still working on the age-old technologies, not the new-age technologies. I think there is where I would say the CIOs, particularly or CTOs, are working on, making sure that while we, the BAU is going on well, but we have enough firepower for the business transformation, which will make us future-proof.
So you've already started thinking on the lines of use cases of technologies like blockchain and metaverse within your industry.
Absolutely, Shipra. And there is, particularly in the aviation industry, there is fantastic use cases, particularly for the metaverse kind of technologies, where you talk about, if you take the aircraft maintenance, the whole engineering department can actually leverage that. The combination of this technology, we talk about mixed reality or AR or VR, where you don't need to, you can create a digital twin, right? You can create a digital twin and you can actually do the training part of it and also the maintenance point of view. I think there is a huge scope for us, and it will have two I would say advantages. One is that it will reduce the learning cycle very quickly, and you can fast fail and learn quickly than getting the the real I would say Boeing 737 or the big aircrafts, which will be very hard for the trainers also to replicate that environment, which this metaverse can help us with.
Absolutely. I think that's very interesting use case that you pointed out. And we are talking of an industry where the lives are at stake, so therefore training is a very important and critical aspect of any aviation industry company. So coming to you, Amol, again, within your organization and more specifically, let's say within your industry, what kind of use cases are you seeing for these new age technologies, AI and ML? Of course, there are a plethora of use cases, but as far as blockchain and metaverse are concerned, are you thinking on those lines for your organization?
Yeah, hi. So first of all, thanks for having us in. I do agree with Mr. Vinod, when he says that the basics are going to stay. And if the entire new age technologies would be an add-ons to the basics, because they are required to keep the lights on. So if I have to address on the AI ML part of it, well, yes, these technologies are already taking we are taking baby steps. The industry is taking baby steps towards adopting these technologies. We definitely see some use cases around it in the areas of customer service, in the area, even in the area of HR, in the area of analytics. So in terms of predicting your sales, so these are some use cases that probably some companies have already adopted, and people are now getting creative on how better we adopt them. Even for the matter, bots are being widely used now. In the specifically about metaverse, metaverse, I believe, is the next version of today's internet. So today, the internet, the way we absorb internet is a flat internet. So we consume it through your flat screens of mobile or the or your laptops. The metaverse is actually, they call it Web 3.0, where you will actually enter this internet. You will have that immersive feeling as if you are in the internet, and there is a big ecosystem which is needed to make this happen. So today we are in a very naive stage where we are thinking and imagining how it can be, but once we start imagining, sky is the limit. So if I have to relate it to our industry or the organization, I can imagine a virtual walkthrough of a home or our gallery, where all these products are showcased on 3D, and people using the augmented reality or the VR can actually walk inside, talk to the personas of the service teams, uh, understand from them the specifications of the products, take the products in, virtually, almost in your hand, and move it around. So that the feeling that you get, because we definitely believe in touching and feeling the product. This is as good as virtually touching and feeling the product. you can change the colors. A step ahead, you can actually get the product out and see how it looks inside your workspace or your home space. And after all of this, we have questions. There are the personas of the people inside that virtual store who we can ask. Now we have the language processing skills, advanced language processing skills, so we can converse to with some people inside virtually in the store, get your queries answered, and finally end up buying a product, getting it delivered physically. But this entire chain of the intent and the content before you make the purchase can happen complete virtual. The belief that people today have buying a product online will be much more developed and trustworthy when you actually see the product in a 3D and get to really experience the product virtually as against a flat screen today. So if you ask me the use cases, I'm thrilled to imagine so many use cases in the industry and the organization.
So, in fact, when you talk about virtually experiencing the products, I think especially after the pandemic, when social distancing and moving out became restricted, some companies, not to the extent of metaverse, but they tried to bring in more experiential kind of experience for their customers, for their prospective customers to experience the products virtually. So I think there are going to be a lot of opportunities and use cases there, and I'm really very distinctive use cases in the aviation and in the manufacturing or in the consumer electrical goods company. I think that's really amazing. Now, when you have for organizations, when the technology leaders are thinking about these technologies and adopting these technologies in the long run, the challenge becomes, whether your employees, your team members, the workforce, whether they are ready for the adoption of these technologies. Because what we see is that most organizations today have a workforce that is equipped with the requisite basic digital literacy and skill set. So earlier, maybe 10 or 15 years back, the issue was that my workforce is not digitally literate, but that is no longer an issue with most organizations because the workforce has the basic digital literacy and skill sets. No, however, what happens is that with new age technologies coming into the picture, the years old processes and operating models are getting disrupted at a much faster pace than ever before, making it difficult for them to keep up with these new technologies. So in your opinion, Vinod, how can leaders bring in nimbleness into their teams to be able to abandon existing systems and adapt to new technologies without compromising the workflow?
Yes, Shipra, I think you brought an important point that it is not one more technology has come. It's about the change in the operating model going to be. So when you talk of operating model, you typically think about four entities. First is who is consuming these services. If you're in industry, for example, aviation or passengers. So customers is on the forefront. That what are the changes in terms of buying behavior, in terms of service, in terms of support. So because they are much more probably digital savvy than what you are. So they are getting impacted. So you need to understand that they are important stakeholders. Then you come to the employees. So employees, there are several dimensions to it. One is skill set is one dimension. That how do you elevate or improve the competency, digital competency of the employees, making sure that they understand what it is. But more important is that what does it mean to their role? Because if I'm today doing a role, and tomorrow will this new technology is going to make my role better? Is it going to eliminate it? Am I going to get into a new position? I think that is where more important question from employee point of view is relevant. Third is the processes, the applications which are getting impacted because of this, which is the heart of the business. And because you cannot, as you said, that you cannot stay with the age-old technologies, age-old processes. You need to reimagine that because these digital interventions or technology interventions are happening at process level. So if somebody is, for example, whole buying process, whole support process, or even the multi-channel strategies which you talk about. So those are the third things about. So every process you need to look at, and there is where who is playing that role for that process is the second aspect which the employees also will get. Fourth is the technology aspect. So it is CAT. So if you look at the CAT part of it, customers, employees, application technologies. So you need to look at all these 4 dimensions, and you need to make progress on that. You cannot be only telling employees, yeah, you need to upskill yourself, but your processes are very old. It doesn't make a sense. So they will soon get frustrated seeing that, oh, I've got, say, certified in new technology, but the company is still talking about the old technology. So it's like that. So if I know that this company is forward looking, they are investing in the new technologies, it means that the processes are getting revamped, infrastructure is being looked at, the customers where we are serving is being looked at, or new channels, new geos, new product lines, new services are being thought about. So this whole ecosystem of new operating model has to be thought through. And then you will see that the employees will have a lot better, I would say, satisfaction with the job, the more retention with the employees, and more importantly, they can make a difference to your business. Because at the end of the day, they are the people who are on the ground, and they may be playing different roles. If you make them capable, if you make them understand what this technology is going to do, and the good part is that those are the people who will give ideas also, that this business process can be done better now, as long as they understand what this technology means to them. So the whole purpose of getting this whole new ecosystem, getting into a new operating model as the technologies are emerging, I think there's where the catch is. And as leaders, we need to constantly push on all the dimensions and communicate well to the people, because a lot of miscommunication happens in this whole process. People are scared. People don't want to move out of their comfort zone. That is the nature, right? So how do you make sure that you tell them that what it means to you? And there are a lot of top-down approaches, bottom-up approaches, which we can talk about probably later also.
Right, absolutely. So Amol, as a CIO, as a technologist, the CIOs decide, okay, this is the new technology that we are going to be now adopting, pursuing, and you have a future roadmap in place that these are the technologies that we will be looking at. Like you mentioned, some of the use cases for Metaverse. So in such a case, the employees or the workforce also has to keep pace with your vision as a CIO. So how do you ensure that you bring in that agility or that nimbleness into the teams to be able to keep pace with the technology vision that the CIO has, or that the technology office of the company has?
Sure. Yeah, that is an important question. And that is where some companies succeed and some companies struggle. Well, while the CIOs kind of bring in newer technologies, the adoption has to be completely need based. It can be a threat or an opportunity, but there has to be a need to it. So with that need, we should be able to answer a question which everybody has. What is in it for me? Also for the organization. Just introducing a new technology is not going to win. A technology introduction has to be based on certain objectives which the company has actually envisaged. So we call it digital transformation, but it's actually a much bigger picture to actually make it all happen. It has to be a business transformation led decisions. And under the branch of business transformation, we will have people transformation, we will have process transformation, leadership transformation, management transformation, cultural transformation. Digital transformation is a part of all of this. So when all of them come together, that is where the real transformation starts happening, and we really are able to convince our stakeholders, our users, customers, and consumers that this is something for you. It is not something which is pushed on you. It is something that you need, or this is something that is going to improve your daily life, the way you look at information, the way you process your information, the way you really even to some extent improve your work life balance, the way you respond to your customers. So all of that is going to improve with all of these transformational efforts, and digital is an enabler, right? So there is a purpose for enabling, and digital is an enabler. So once we get or we understand this very well, and we push on all those cylinders, right? So that is where we see a good success, because digital alone cannot change things, people alone cannot change things, they have to go hand in hand. And once that is established well, I think all these digital, any new technology for that matter, will be embraced by the people as against being pushed on them.
Right. So I think from what I understand from both of you is that people transformation is an integral part of any digital transformation exercise. And however, people transformation is not always as easy as it sounds, because if I just let me just look at something like metaverse, AR, VR. So even with a fairly digitally savvy workforce, which probably is already working, which already is used to some high-end technologies, but technologies such as metaverse, AR, VR, they can be quite intimidating even for them. So what particular challenges do you see when it comes to adoption of such a technology, which is quite futuristic, and more futuristic technologies will come into the picture as we go. So from the perspective of users within the organization, what challenges do you see when it comes to adoption of such a technology, and how to address these challenges? So Vinod, maybe you can go first on this.
Sure, Shipra. I would say from adoption perspective, the first challenge, which will be the skill set. Is this workforce really ready? And goes back to my earlier point, is having a very strong integrated competency plan. And what is that, cross-skilling, upskilling? And when I say cross-skilling, upskilling is not only technology related, it's also related domain consultants who understand the business processes well. Because without technology in isolation, I think Amol also brought that point, technology in isolation has no meaning. It is technology, what difference it is going to make to the business is important. What KPI is going to improve, it's going to be important. So you need to have a good 2 in a box, 3 in a box strategy, where the business partners as well as the technology leaders together look at the problem and see that how this technology is going to make a difference. And to do that, you need to make sure that the people, you have the right skill set in terms of, for example, as a technology person, do you have the right architects? Do you know that, whether it is B2C, B2B, what kind of application are we talking about? Is it already going to be on the cloud or not going to be on the cloud? Is it, have we invested right, do we have the right infrastructure for the technologies like Metaverse? Because there are multiple aspects of it. It's not only one technology we're talking about. So I think that is the first thing that, from the adoption perspective, skill set is very important. Second is the sponsorship. See, it's very important that employees enough cannot do. They can get themselves trained of their own also. But if there is no sponsorship from the board and the CXOs, it's not going to work. So the challenge there is that you need to have the right sponsorship top down, where people really appreciate that this is coming. They understand it is coming. Yes, there will be time, but what will be that, I would say, staggered adoption plan, which the board or the CXOs can take their call and start identifying those areas of the business which are the candidates for that. I think just delaying it may not a problem solution, but looking at it and see the applicability of it and which business area, business function. I think that is the second thing which is a challenge which can help to adopt it as the technology matures. Third thing which is very important is the OCM, organization change management. I think it's about that how the world is going to change, and it takes lots of effort for the at all levels, not only CXOs but also at the next level, even at the the team member level, who understands that what it means in terms of what technology is about, how the role is changing. I think the OCM is very important. I think the broad three, I would say, adoption challenges, which will help to embrace these technologies a lot quicker and make it relevant for the business. I think we have to wear the business hat all the time. There are tons of technologies available in the market, and every day they are going. But what does it mean to me? What does it mean to the business? I think there is where the CIOs are today spending time. CTOs are today spending time. That how, and particularly in COVID times, where we have seen the new challenges are being thrown in terms of agility, in terms of dynamic requirements, dynamic demand and supply, and lot of companies have really changed the whole architecture of the company in terms of infra, in terms of services. So I think that we have to keep in mind as we start adopting it.
Absolutely, I think business relevance is something that has to be the primary driver for any organization to adopt any technology. So, Amol, coming to, let's say, adoption of a technology like Metaverse, the kind of use case that you mentioned, that means that your service teams, your sales teams, your marketing teams, they all need to be able to understand, they need to be savvy enough to adopt the metaverse, the technologies that go into making a metaverse. So what kind of challenges do you see there? Because they are not technologists, they are not technology people, but they still need to be savvy enough to be able to understand and adopt something like a metaverse. So what challenges do you see there, and how can organizations address those kind of challenges?
Yeah. So, all the CXOs that we work with today, we are in a much blessed time that they do acknowledge the power of technology. So it is not very difficult to convince them to look at new technologies. So some things that we do is we continuously get them introduced to new age technologies with some use cases. Okay, just going blank with to them, and these are some new technologies in the market, and just forget it, is not going to really help. So we need to go to, say, the head of marketing or the head of innovation, or some product line, or heads. We need to go to them that this technology, we see a best fit in these specific areas in your business scope, and this is how it will improve the ease of doing business with the organization. Or it is going to, for example, uh, reimagine the overall product portfolio. For example, if I am showing a, if a retailer is showing a product portfolio, is today opening up a booklet, can we reimagine it so that when he comes to your outlet, you just give him that AR/VR gadget, and he has that immersive experience to look at different products, almost virtually touch and feel, and it's a different experience altogether. Okay, is it the right time, first of all, to get this? But yes, there are technologies today. Now, when we introduce these technologies to them, they always have this in back of their mind, and some of them come back saying that, okay, you have told us about certain technology like this, can we adopt it, or can we experiment it in a different space? So we as technology leaders think about a certain use case. Maybe our technology partners think about a different use case, but the business leaders remember that and try to adopt it that way, or maybe reimagine in a different area of their business. Good that they are acknowledging that the technology is a game changer, so that is makes our life easy. But I think challenging is that we have to be on our toes and get them aligned to all these new age technologies with specific use cases which we think, or the technology leaders or partners think, can be impactful in our industry, maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, right? So if we are going 20, 30 years beyond, I think people start losing interest. And if we are talking about today, there are all the technologies available, so it is no brainer that we need to really look at it seriously. We are talking in a near term or a short or long term kind of a space where we need to introduce our leaders to these technologies through events like Technology Day, where we call people on board and technology partners on board. Let them talk about new technologies, we brainstorm about some use cases around them, and maybe follow through, or some of them we kind of stagger them for the next 2 3 years as a strategic investment. Some of them can be experimented now, and this is how the overall discussions go through in in at least in our industry. I'm sure Mr. Vinod would agree to some extent on this.
So one thing is very clear. I think cross-functional collaboration is absolutely critical when it comes to most efficacious tech enablement and empowerment within the organization. So to wrap it up, my last question is that any technology without 100% adoption internally cannot be effective. So what best practices do you suggest that organizations adopt in order to create the pull from users, that the users ask for them rather than just pushing the technologies down the throat to your workforce? So how do you create the pull versus push? How do you make the shift from pushing the technologies down to the workforce to creating the pull from them? So Vinod, what would be your take on that?
Yeah, I think Shipra, if I had to sum up really how employees or the stakeholders will embrace it, then pushing, I would say the three, four things. First is that what it means to business. I think if they understand it, whosoever is a stakeholder, whether it's a marketing guy, sales guy, call center person, that what it means to me, it can help in the productivity. I think that the first thing is that whole communication part of it on the business KPIs, whether it is cost management, better customer experience. I think we need to talk about it. Second is what it means to the employees themselves. I think we talked about in this discussion that very important that we talk about it, because see, you cannot push these things, and it is, if you push without really making people understand what it means, it's going to fail, because eventually they are not buying it. You have to make sure they buy it first. So the only buying can happen when they understand what it means to me, when I understand what it means to my business, and that's very important about it. Then also give them where it can take you. See, you are talking about the futuristic use cases. You are talking about the new product lines. You are talking about new geos. You are talking about new services. When they really visualize that this technology can give us, I think the adoption or the pull becomes a lot easier than push. And the last one is you should celebrate the success. Many times what happens is that you got a lot of digital ambassadors, say Metaverse ambassadors in the company, but they do a lot of, I would say groundwork. They make sure that the pilots go live, but we don't celebrate. I think identify those people, celebrate in the town halls, give them the rewards and recognition. I think this goes long way. It really spreads the right word within the organization, and really say that oh, something is coming, and this person who is a star performer in Metaverse, I think we should all go for it.
Yeah, so it's very important to create a kind of excitement within the within the workforce. So one is that you kind of give them a view of what the future opportunities are, and then of course celebrate their successes. So Amol, what is your take on moving from a push to a pull approach for technologies, for new age technologies within the workforce?
There has to be a proper balance of push and pull both. Though I agree that pull has to be there for proper acceptance, because the stakeholders and the users are convinced that there is something in for them. They are convinced that this is going to change their life for better. They are going to change their customers' life for better. So the adoption becomes easy. So once they are convinced, which is that is a pull from the people, the technology usage, adoption, and the driving value from these technology adoptions becomes much more easier. Is push bad? Well, no, because there it starts, many of the times it starts from a push as well, because these new technologies many people may or may not know about. So there has to be some driving force to push us, to evaluate technologies, to you look at new use cases which we have never imagined earlier, because new technologies give rise and give birth to new opportunities, right? So there has to be some kind of a push in evaluating technologies, evaluating use cases. But when you're talking about driving it down to the workforce or your customers or your consumers, it has to be pull based. You cannot really push a technology down anybody's throat and then imagine it to be a success. It cannot happen that way, and it has never happened that way. So a pull is always necessary when it comes to going on the ground for the foot on field. There they need to be convinced before, without their acceptance, these new technologies will just stay on the servers. They will not really drive value.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think it was really interesting conversation today, because I've generally, whenever I've interacted with you and other CIOs, the conversation has been around technologies, but it's really interesting to see how CIOs are now thinking from the perspective of the workforce as well. And it's important that when they are deploying any technology, they need to think about the internal adoption and how that internal adoption can be improved, and that requires a lot of cross-functional collaboration between different teams, both top-down, bottom-up approach to ensure that these new technologies are adopted effectively and innovation can be done around these technologies. So thank you so much, Vinod and Amol. It was a pleasure talking to you, and have a great day.
Thank you,
Thank
Shipra,
you.
for
Thanks for
having me.
having us.
Thank you everyone for your participation and the detailed inputs. Now we're going to proceed to the next session. Stay tuned and keep the engagement high on the social media using the hashtag ETHRNextTech.